In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to use Selenium WebDriver to run in parallel using 3 different technologies: running JUnit4, running JUnit5, and running TestNg. I'll show you each example and how it works with Selenium WebDriver and how to make it all run in parallel. So stay with me. My name is Nikolai Volodkin, founder of UltimateQA.com. Let's go check out the code. So over here, you can see that I have a class that I'm calling my JUnit test. In here, there is nothing special here. I have my Selenium WebDriver, and I have my before class that uses WebDriver Manager to set up a Chrome driver. And I have my before hook that gets the driver, and I have my after hook that quits the driver. And then I have my test cases, which just does this run test, which is not relevant at all, but it opens up some page object and logs in and then asserts that the products page was opened. And you can see that in the other 10 tests that I have, I just repeat exactly the same thing. So if everything goes according to plan, all of these 10 tests should work in parallel. Now, in order to make JUnit run in parallel, it's actually extremely easy. All we need is the maven surefire plugin. Let me show you exactly how to configure that. So you just go to your POM XML, and you just need to add this dependency of maven surefire plugin. You can see that we are setting our parallelization at the methods level, and I'm setting thread count to 10. You can obviously set the thread count to as high as you want, but it will obviously depend on your machine's hardware resources on how much threading it can actually handle. So with all of that said, that's really it. That's all you do to run JUnit tests in parallel. Let's come to our terminal. And then we're just going to type in here maven test. And now we're going to see a bunch of browsers pull up on our machine and execute. Unfortunately, you won't see them because they're showing up on my other screen, but you see now how fast that was. So 7.9 seconds. You can see 10 tests were executed, 0 failures, everything passed successfully. That's them running all in parallel. So that's all there is to the JUnit running in parallel. How about executing JUnit5 in parallel? JUnit5 changed their API just a little bit. They changed these annotations. For example, here's our before all annotation, and here's our after all annotation. We still have our standard driver here. Now they also have a new before each annotation and an after each annotation, which is exactly the same as JUnit4. They just updated the annotation name. The test annotation remained the same on the other hand, and that doesn't need to change at all. Everything else in here you can see is exactly the same. We still have our should login test that executes this method right here. And then we have 10 of those, okay? So just like in JUnit4, JUnit5, it's still extremely easy to execute in parallel. You still do it through the maven surefire plugin in the POM XML. So let's go ahead and navigate to our POM XML, and we can take a look at our maven surefire plugin. You can see that what's changed here now is we have these properties, and these properties have these configuration parameters. So all you have to do is enable parallel execution to be true and enable parallel mode default to be concurrent. And with those capabilities in mind, JUnit will run in parallel extremely easy. Let's go ahead and give this a shot. So what you're not seeing on the other windows is that I have a bunch of windows that popped up and tests executed in parallel. And you can see that in 9.4 seconds, we executed 10 tests, 0 failures, as there should be. So everything is excellent. And that's how you run JUnit5 in parallel. So how can we run TestNg in parallel? And unfortunately, it's actually not as easy as JUnit. TestNg is not natively thread safe, and so simply adding Maven Surefire plugin is not going to work. I will actually show you that because there are many doubts about this. So you can see I have the same exact class, and I'm calling this a TestNg test. Same exact driver, same exact code for setup and after hook. Of course, obviously the annotations just changed based on TestNg. And then I have my before method, which will get my driver, and my after method, which will kill my driver. And now I have my test that you've seen before, should log in, that will execute run test, and run test does exactly the same thing as before, and I will have 10 of those. So that's exactly the same code as you've seen before. Now, let me show you our POM XML, and that I did add the Maven Surefire plugin to it. I added methods to be in parallel and 10 sessions. TestNg must have methods enabled. For example, if you try to do all, it actually will not work, where in JUnit you can do all and that will work. So let's say we are adding methods here, and let's give this a shot and I'll show you exactly what happens. Now, on my other screen, what you're actually going to see is a bunch of browsers opening and running tests. However, what you're also going to see are threading problems with TestNg because it's not natively thread safe. And so what you'll find now is, let me get this window out of the way, you'll actually find that I have a bunch of windows still open on my computer because of threading issues with TestNg. If we look at the results as well, you will actually see errors instead of passes as we normally encounter. You can see 5 failures here, 10 tests executed, and so 5 pass. And you can see different kinds of errors, right? No such session, invalid session ID, error here, and so on and so forth. Different kinds of errors on different tests. And so that is a problem for us because it's not so easy to make TestNg run in parallel. So how do we fix this? So to fix this, we actually have to update our code. Because TestNg is not natively thread safe, we have to wrap our class instance objects into a thread local so that thread local will allow us access to a specific thread. And so let's see what other code needs to be changed. So the before class is going to remain the same, where we're still setting up our Chrome driver. The after class is going to remain the same, and actually it always has. I'm simply just printing out all the thread information in the after class. The before method is actually going to change a little bit because before every single test method, what we're going to need to do is use our thread local driver, and we're going to need to set that thread local driver to a new Chrome driver instance. So every single thread local instance now refers to the correct Chrome driver instance. We are linking the Chrome driver object with the thread local driver thread. And then in the after hook and anywhere else we want to use our Chrome driver, we now need to refer to the object through the thread local driver. So you're going to have to do thread local driver.get, and then any other operation you need to perform afterwards will come afterwards, versus before we would just have something like a driver.quit. We can't do that anymore. We now have to refer to all of our drivers and any other future class level variable that we want to run in parallel. We'll have to refer to it through a thread local object. Okay, and so those are the main changes. Everything else remains the same. You can see that everything else here is the same. We still have all the same tests. And now, if I run this in parallel, you will see that it works successfully and we'll have 10 out of 10 passes. But unfortunately, here we do have to update actual code in order to make TestNg run in parallel. And that's problematic because if we do that initially incorrectly, it will cause us a lot of problems down the line, because let's say we have an automation framework that didn't use thread local drivers from the beginning. Now, every single call to a driver is going to need to be replaced by this, and you're going to need to go through a bunch of code and fix stuff. But anyways, you can see that our build was successful. Here's the execution time. You can see 10 tests executed, 0 failures, and that's it. That's how you execute TestNg in parallel, JUnit5 in parallel, and JUnit4 in parallel.